Today, let's journey high into the Andes of Peru, into a world of misty mountains that was once home to one of history's most incredible and mysterious civilizations, the Inca Empire. So, picture this. High above the clouds, there is a city built from perfectly carved stone. It was so secret that when the Spanish conquerors rolled in and toppled the entire empire, they never even knew this place existed. This is Machu Picchu, a lost city that sat untouched for centuries, a silent reminder of what these people could do. And that brings us to the big question, right? The real mystery we're diving into today. How in the world did a civilization without the wheel, without iron tools, not even horses, create some of the most mind-blowing stone architecture on the entire planet? To find out, we need to rewind a bit. To really get a handle on their genius, we have to go back to the very beginning, to the birth of this unlikely superpower. It all started here, in a city high up in the Andes called Cusco. But to the Inca, this was not just any city. For them, this place was the navel of the world. I mean, literally the sacred center of everything, the spot from which their whole civilization would just explode outwards. And what's just absolutely wild is how fast it all happened. From this one single city, they expanded across the continent in less than 200 years. They went from a small city seat to building the biggest empire in the Americas before the Europeans ever showed up. It's staggering. And just get a load of the territory they controlled. Their world stretched for thousands of kilometers, from southern Colombia all the way down to central Chile. We're talking massive mountain ranges, bone-dry deserts, and dense, humid jungles. Holding all of that together, well, that took a special kind of genius. This incredible success, it was all built on a foundation of genius-level engineering. You see, the Inca weren't just conquerors. They were master builders who literally paved the way for their own empire. You know, we always hear about the Romans as the ultimate road builders of the ancient world, right? Well, guess what? The Inca created a network that absolutely gave them a run for their money. Let that number sink in for a moment. 40,000 kilometers. An intricate web of roads clinging to the sides of mountains, and get this, all built without wheels or any big animals to haul stuff. This was a triumph of pure human ingenuity and muscle. And these roads weren't just for getting from point A to B, they were their version of the internet, a communications superhighway. They had this brilliant system called the chasqui, elite runners stationed all along the roads. They'd operate in relays, literally sprinting messages over mountains at incredible speed. It was a communication network that was centuries ahead of its time. But you know, for the Inca, these mountains were so much more than just obstacles to build roads on. They were sacred. In their world, every mountain, every river, every single stone was alive with spiritual power. And to connect with these powerful forces, the Inca had this incredibly profound ritual. It was seen as the greatest honor imaginable. The strongest, healthiest, most beautiful children were chosen for a special purpose, to become messengers, journeying to speak directly with the gods. These children were taken to the highest, most sacred mountain peaks, where the freezing, dry air did something incredible. It preserved their bodies perfectly. When archaeologists found them centuries later, they said they were so intact, it felt like they were simply asleep. But this vibrant, sacred world was about to collide with a force it could never have prepared for: the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors. And this moment, it marks one of the most dramatic and devastating turning points in all of world history. I mean, just look at this. In 1532, Francisco Pizarro shows up with a mere 168 men to face an empire of millions. On paper, that's impossible, right? But the Inca were in a really vulnerable spot. A brutal civil war had just ripped the empire in two. And even worse, diseases the Europeans brought, like smallpox, had already raced ahead of them, wiping out huge parts of the population. It was the perfect storm for a catastrophe. And the end came with shocking speed. Pizarro had this incredibly bold and ruthless plan. He captured the Inca emperor, Atahualpa. Now, you have to understand, for the Inca, their emperor wasn't just a king. He was a living god. So when he was taken, the entire empire just unraveled. It collapsed almost overnight. So you see, this wasn't just some battle they lost. It was like the entire head of the civilization was suddenly chopped off. The fall was so fast, so total, that historians are still scratching their heads about it today. And that brings us right back to where we started. The empire might be gone, But its legacy is literally carved in stone, leaving us with these massive questions that still echo through the Andes today. Seriously, how did they do it? We're talking about massive stones, some weighing many tons, that fit together so perfectly you can't even slip a piece of paper between them. Some people think they used harder river stones to just painstakingly pound the blocks into shape. But honestly, nobody knows for sure. And what's the deal with Machu Picchu, their most famous creation? Why would you build this absolutely breathtaking city in the clouds, only to just walk away from it 100 years later? Was it a war? A plague? A change in their beliefs? It's another huge puzzle with no clear answer. And it's not just the Inca. The land itself holds even older mysteries. You've probably heard of the Nazca Lines, right? These giant figures carved into the desert floor by cultures that came before the Inca. You can only really see them from the sky. Were they a giant astronomical calendar? Messages for the gods? And that might be the most captivating part of this whole story. For all these big, profound questions, after all our research, all our technology, the simple, honest answer is, to this day, no one really knows for sure. The mountains are still keeping their secrets.